Hello friends, welcome to my channel, a channel for learning simple coding. If you find this video to be helpful, please like, share and subscribe my channel. In this video, we are going to learn what is component, types of component in React, types of component in Next.js, and how to create React components and how to use those components in Next.js. That we are going to understand. Remember that it's a most important video because without component nothing is possible in React or Next.js, so we have to understand this concept. So before starting this, go to our project and here I want to create my component. For doing that, first of all we have to understand what is component. So I'm creating a new file here and I say what is component. So component is a JavaScript function that return some value is called component. Remember that. It's very simple to understand, but you have to keep in mind that a JavaScript function that returns some value is called component. In JavaScript, maybe number of functions are available. If function may be return value, function may not return a value. But if a function return a value, that function can be used as a component. Remember that. If function is not returning a value, that cannot be used as a component. That you have to understand here. So a function that returns some value is called component. All the functions cannot be a component, but all the component are function. Remember that, because there are types of function. The function return a value is called component. Now next thing is types of component in Next.js. So in Next.js we have client side component, then we have server side component. Client side component, when we use client this, and top of the component is called client component. If we use server like this, or it is optional also, we don't use anything without using this, that is also called server component. So means by default all the components in Next.js like this page component, this page component is also server side component because we are not using this use client at the top of this component. But in server side component we may use this or we can ignore this. By default all component are server side, but in some component we have to write this because we want to show that that component would be as a server side component. Remember that. Now client side or server side components are of two type. Remember, one is functional component, second is class component. So I am not using any class component in this series because nobody use class component nowadays, all use functional component. So these functional component is also of two type, normal function and second one is arrow function. Remember that. So we have to understand these concept that component is a function that return a value. There are two types of function components, client side component, server side component. By default all the components are server side, but you may use this notation also on top of the screen, and if you use client then it will become client component. Server side or client side component of two type, functional component and class component. Class component you may use, but I am not using here. In function component we have a normal function and we have an arrow function. Like here we are using a normal function here, but I will use the arrow function also. Remember that. Now these client side component, all client side component is called React component, and this server side component are called Next.js component. Remember that here. Types of component in React.js are two type. We have functional component and class component. Functional component are two type, normal function and arrow function. In Next.js also client side we have a functional component and class component. Remember that. And now how to create these component and how to use this, that we are going to understand. So I think you understand now each and every concept of component theoretically. Now we have to go for practical. So in app directory I create one directory also. I say components. Remember, under this directory and I create my component. I say display component, display.tsx. remember that tsx because it's Typescript, so I'm using display.tsx. so I'm giving the name of this is display. Now I say RFCE. remember that if I say RFCE because I have installed the plugin, so it will create a normal function. Remember that. And for that I have installed a plugin of this is called React. If I click here, so I have already installed this plugin, this one, ES7 React Redux React Native Snippets. So this is the plugin that I have installed. You can install this also for shortcut purpose. So you see that it have created this normal function, and here in this function I type the same, this one. Remember, I am removing this from here, cut it from here, and I display it under this div. Here I just create it and save it. So this I am creating here. Remember that display, this is the component display one, and it's a normal one, and I just call it here. So how to call? Just use here display. You see it's showing the path also, and like this we are using this. You will see the output, no changes there, no problem, because we have to refresh it. You see that same we have here, no output change. Everything we have done inside a component here now, and we are just doing this. And now I am removing all these things from here, no requirement of this class name here right now. Just I give here it's I say margin only, I say margin 2 from all the sides. So you see that it going here. So margin I am giving only, and each and everything I am removing from that. So this is the text which we are displaying here with the help of this component, normal component. So this is a normal functional component. In place of this I can also use arrow function. So I can convert this also in arrow function, or I can take separate one also. So just I make a copy of this. Remember that I make just copy of this. You see, one copy of this, and here I say display one, and in place of this I say const, because I am converting this into arrow function. So this is the arrow function display one, and by default this is the my default function, that's why I'm just using here. But I can export this also without a default. I say display one like this. So that means I can also import display one also, same one, but here I say this display one here multiple. You see this is the function here, and you see that we have this one, and here I go there and I import this one also. For that I need to call here like this. I say display one, and here I use it display one. Remember that. So if I execute it also, you see 2 times I am using this function. Remember that. So this is my arrow function, this is my normal function, and this is default function, this is default export function, this is normal export function. So you see that default export we do like this, and normal we do like this. Remember that. This is the concept that you have to understand here, okay, in Next.js with Typescript. Remember that. So much is available in this video. I have explained you what is component, React component, Next.js component, how to create this component in React and how to use it. So these all about React component, because remember that I am not using here use client. So this is normal your component, those are executing on server side. So if I want to use these component in client side, so I have to use like this. No change in execution right now, but it will change later on also when we will do some advanced programming of Next.js. Then there is some changes what we can use on server side and what we can use on client side. Right now you can see that if I am declaring this is pure React component, because all the React concept I can use in this components, like hooks I want to use, I can use those hooks also here in this component. Remember that. If I remove this here, now by default it is server side component, or I can use import also for server component, but by default is server component. That means you can't use hook here. If you will use React concept, hooks and other React concepts, then you have to convert into client side, because React execute at client side and Next.js server side component execute at server side. that you have to understand in Next.js, because Next.js is a full stack development framework that is a combination of Node.js and React. Both the coding you can do in Next.js. That's why they are merging this, and this is the concept of component in Next.js. So I explain you each and everything about component. So now I think you would be able to understand client side, server side, default component, and you can say default export, normal export, and functional component of normal type, of your arrow function type. So how to call it in this page.tsx file. So each and everything just you understand, I think, now about this. This is a basic and fundamental knowledge that is required to run Next.js application. If you like it, please do subscribe. Thank you for watching this video.